Hi, designers. It's Anna Livermore from V.Mora with your In the District podcast. And we're here with Laura DeTola. Laura, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Laura DeTola, the founder of the Clutchmade Factory. We're at clutchmade.com. You can reach us there, or clutchmadefactory.com. Drop us a line. You can put in your contact information and we'll email you and schedule a call to talk about what you want to make in the form of making accessories and developing accessories in the USA.
Perfect. Thanks for that. So today we're talking about, I get calls all the time from designers and they say, I need a factory.
Or I need manufacturing.
I want to
partner with a manufacturer.
Right.
Yes.
And doing this long enough, I know to ask the right questions to discover they're not ready for a manufacturer.
Correct. I find the same thing.
So that's what I wanted to talk about today so that we can kind of educate the designers more around what they're actually looking for and what they need. So the one thing that you said that was interesting was like what manufacturing used to look like versus what it looks like now, and how what we do is preparing them for production.
Exactly. It seems like there's this old school factory manufacturing that has kind of dwindled in the USA versus this new style of manufacturing that everyone's become accustomed to that's overseas.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they've really come to the forefront and offering people this one-stop shop over there so people can just send an email off, oh, I want to make sunglasses, I want to make bags, etc. And back comes something that they want to make. Oh my gosh, magic.
Yep.
And so now let's turn around and look at the USA. So you have these factories.
Before you go, I just want to clarify a little bit for the people that haven't gone into manufacturing, what the difference is when you say like, oh, you just send an email versus here in the US, what manufacturing looks like.
Exactly.
That might be where you're going with this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
So then you come around to the US, as you know, right? And people send these emails like you received and they say, oh, I just need to make this. I'm looking for a manufacturer. This is where our conversation begins.
Yes.
So when you get to the U.S. now, because we've gotten so behind and you want to manufacture, this is when you ask the questions, oh, what is it you need? Well, not every manufacturer in this country can provide you with the services that are needed to get you up to production mode.
Yeah.
Right? To actually make something.
And I always find it, when I start asking, like, okay, well, we can do your tech packs and we can help source your fabrics and we can do your patterns and we can do your samples. I'm not a manufacturer. I have partners that are manufacturers. And then they go, no, I just need a factory. I don't need your help. I just need a factory.
Right.
Because they think they're going to find this factory that's going to do all of this for them. And there's just not a lot of factories that do that. In my experience, the factories that I work with want to cut and they want to sew. That's it.
Right.
They don't want to educate the designer around what they need. They don't want to talk to them about what a tech pack is and why it's important. Or in fact, they'll tell you they don't need a tech pack.
Right. And then you go in with your little sketch on a napkin and they kind of put it together for you. And I get calls like that from around the country too. But I think that's because there's never been any transition. And that's why we are the new factories. Yeah. You and I, we offer manufacturing services and actually make the samples and do the production and then offer all the services that lead up to it, whereas most factories don't do this. So like you said, you drop off all the materials, you have your sketch on a napkin, and you try to figure it out, which is really not the ideal way to break into this. And I think that's why you and I, Anna, are trying to, in our own way, in our own local community, trying to update the process of manufacturing in the USA as best we can.
Yeah, and this is also part of the reason why, and we were talking about this a little bit before we recorded, why factories aren't shouting from the rooftops, hey, I'm here to take on your new projects, new designers, come to me, because they don't want to have to educate the designer, and they don't, for example, one thing that the designers put so much on their factories, right? You send them your fabric, they do your styles, and then when they go to iron it, it shrinks all your garments. Now that's not the factory's fault.
Correct.
That's because the testing should have been done in the development to know that fabric shrunk. But as a new designer, they're going to say, this factory ruined all my garments. And the factory just did the process, how they do the process.
Exactly.
So it's a risk for them to be working with new designers, because if the new designer hasn't tested the product fully, done that wash test, done that testing on, even having the heat transfer put on, or everything that you and I would do with a client before they're ready for manufacturing. Because I know that's another thing that people say a lot is, why aren't the factories being more accessible? Why aren't they, reaching out and trying to look for work? Why aren't they returning my phone calls? That's another one.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Well, a lot of them too just aren't up to date or don't have the office support or any of they just don't have the design support.
Yeah.
They just aren't structured that way. And that's the inherent change that needs to be made in this country that needs, and that's exactly as I can say it a million times, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Most of our factories, you can't email because they don't email, if you can believe it or not.
Oh, we believe it.
Yeah.
We have found actually, just to, let you know a little secret, that we have actually done a very good job of making it through the COVID. Why? We've been able to pivot because our platform of making and developing is online as well, and we're very accessible. So we've been able to communicate,
right?
And that's what it's taken. And a lot of factories here in the garment district have had a hell of a time getting through this period because
they're not online.
They're not online. They don't know how to communicate, return emails, get the tech packs they need or the designs they need because you can't mail in the napkin.
Yep.
So it's been a tough transition, and it's affected them as we move forward now. Even though manufacturing has really picked up in the USA. It's
absolutely.
Really on a great course
I really feel like it's on the upswing, and there are these new ideas and new ways of working together. But let's talk about, because we've alluded to when a designer thinks they need a factory, what are the things they actually need? Exactly.
Well, that is so true, because we find people call up and I have conversations with them because we offer like 15 minutes of
Right. We're in the business to educate the new designers.
Exactly.
That's what we do. So we'll spend the time with them.
Yes. And we do the same thing because really what we're about is offering a lot of development at the beginning, which you can't find in a lot of factories because we've talked about this before. No one wants to spend the time making like a few versions to get you there. Right. They just want to crank it out and know that this is going to work. So we have a process that we use because you definitely need a few services before you actually get to making the product. And the more you know, the better you're going to be. And the more you know and put it at the beginning, the less money you'll spend frivolously or accidentally or end up.
Or like non mistake, having all of this is to prevent you sitting on a production that you can't sell. Exactly. Which is detrimental to a new designer.
Oh, you can waste so much money if you don't do the process correctly and professionally.
Yeah.
I can't express that enough. So what do you start off with?
So the things they need. If someone comes to me and they actually need a manufacturer, not the other services that we offer, they would be required to have a tech pack, their fabric sourced, their buttons, their zippers, their interfacing, their labels, their care labels. All of this needs to be provided to the factory. It needs to be noted in the tech pack. Where did those labels get sewn? What are the spec measurements of your sample? What are the spec measurements of your graded sample? So what that means is you have a perfect sample with everything included. You've got your labels sewn in the proper spots. The fabric is the same fabric you're doing in production. You have wash tested that garment. You've put it in the washer. You put it in the dryer. You brought it to the dry cleaner. Whatever it says on your care label, you have done. Your patterns are digital. Your patterns are graded. You've done a size check run. So you've done one large. You've done one small. And if all of those things are done, if you have that whole package together, you can go into manufacturing. You're looking for a factory. But if you don't have your technical design, you need a tech designer. If you don't have your trims and your fabric sourced, you need someone to help you source your goods. If you don't have your pattern, you need a pattern maker. If you don't have your sample, you need a sample maker. If you don't have your patterns digital and graded, you need a digitizer and a grader. So those are the questions I ask. Did I forget anything? I mean, there's other things too. I would suggest having a budget, having a timeline, having a competitive analysis. And that's a whole other thing.
It's such a process. And how many people, I mean, what's the percentage of people that actually come to you who have those things all? There we go.
0% of people. So in the light of, if I were a factory, knowing that almost 100% of the calls I get from people, they're not ready for me, I'm less likely to answer my phone.
There you go. And that is the reason, if people are wondering why, right there. So the reason we answer our phones is because we can actually sit down and offer consultations to set our clients up. Like, we offer a design consultation right off the bat when people are like, well, I'm not quite sure. I do have this idea. I think about it a lot, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Well, we want to help you get that idea from your head down onto paper and get you through the tech pack process that's professional. So we're all on the same page. The sourcing, so you can understand what your materials are. The sample making, the cost out, the logos, the application of your logo, and everything else that goes along with what you need to get to production. Yep.
So I guess that is, like, in summary, what someone needs to have when they're asking for a factory. They're actually asking for someone to help develop their styles prior to manufacturing.
Exactly. And I think to gather up, it's a lot of work. I mean, you just went through quite a list of what it takes for apparel manufacturing. There's so much to go through.
Right.
And I think that's something that the customer needs to start paying attention to, is the work that's involved for that. And most people aren't capable of even doing that, and the time it would take for them to even source out so much of it, let alone figure out the steps, is too much to even get you there. So that's why we do offer all the services that come along with, and that is part of manufacturing. Right. That is really it.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we're talking about offshore, they're going to help you develop, but it's not going to be at the quality of what you want. And that's why a lot of designers will try that. I'm going to send my napkin sketch off to China, and then I'm going to get production. And the risk reward on that, it's very off, because the likeliness of your production coming back and being perfect is pretty low. Mm-hmm. It's pretty low. And maybe it could happen, or maybe, it won't, but they're again, like, they want to get you to the manufacturing part, because they don't make money in the sample making part and in the prototyping part. So they're just going to, rush you along through the development so that you get to production, whether or not you're ready or not.
No, you're so right. You hit upon something right there. I think it's that rushing through the development. They don't, so they do offer very, low-priced sample making so that they can get you to the large number production runs. And on the flip side, in this country, developing a product is more costly when you're doing a sample, and that's what you put your money into, because there's so much work involved in actually getting a prototype. Yeah. So we think of it as really building something that's solid before you jump in to make a whole lot of them. Right. You really should be sure of what it is you're making and test it.
Yeah. And I have clients too that will develop with me and then take something offshore. Yes. And that's smart, because you're controlling the process. You're controlling the fit. You're controlling the fabric. You're controlling the digital patterns. And then you send that packaged deal offshore. They just have to duplicate it.
Exactly. We work with clients in that as well. Yeah. Developing bags and then doing everything. It is amazing what comes back. Sometimes I just can't even believe it. It'll be like down to the T of the same hardware, logo application, fabrics. It's just amazing. But, the communication on this side of of the big pond, right, is easier.
Right.
So you can get it done quicker and be able to discuss it and ship it at a lower cost, really.
Yeah.
It'll save you less aggravation, less headache, and then send it overseas if that's the way you want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good alternative to, it's a good happy medium. If you are looking to do things offshore, at least spend the time to develop it here locally where you can really control what you're doing. And then they can just match and duplicate the system you've set up. So we do have clients that do that. If they're not, there's a lot of clients that want to develop in the U.S. That's part of their process.
Yeah, more so now. I think people are realizing when everything shuts down in the world, like who are we relying on? It's really better to go local. And that serves for every country. Yeah. I think more every country now is looking to their own resources within their country, so they don't have to rely on other countries, their economy, their health, whatever's going on. And I think it's becoming local, worldwide local.
Yeah.
So I think it's going gangbusters in this country now. Everyone wants to make it in the USA. So everyone's learning a big lesson. One of the biggest lessons is they're learning that raw materials are really not made here anymore.
None of it. All of the raw materials are coming. And I'm sure you're experiencing it too, where everything's out of stock. We're waiting on shipments for almost everything.
Oh, that's huge. And I gave the heads up to a lot of my clients. I'm like, if you really want to make, I put in your orders now. I think what I foresee, I mean, I'm not looking into my magic ball, but I think if you want to make something, there's going to be really low inventory come holiday time.
Yeah.
So it's a great time to get in on having something in stock because you probably will end up selling out of it.
Right.
Because inventory is really running low. And I think by the time we get to October, there's not going to be a lot out there.
Yeah.
In every respect, mostly raw materials, right?
Yeah. Raw materials. And I think a lot of companies, when they should have been producing their fall in the spring, didn't.
Correct, yeah.
So there's going to be low inventory just for the consumer side.
Yes.
And then the final piece I wanted to talk about was just, I think that the final connect that has to happen with American Made is to the consumer. Because I feel like the consumer says, yeah, I want my product made in America. But then they get to the cash register and that's not the product they're picking. So I feel like that's the final disconnect. Like the designers are on board. The designers are getting it. The designers are wanting things made in the U.S. And the customers are saying they want it in the U.S., but I don't think that's where they're spending their dollars. Like, I don't think they quite understand. Like, they'll spend, they'll go out to I don't know, what's like a really fancy, like they'll spend $20 on a juice.
Right.
Because the story... and it's not made out of a plastic bottle, and the ingredients are organic. But when it comes to spending their money for clothing, I don't think it's quite there yet.
No, I agree with you. I think it's just we see it as a final price point. It's they feel like it's a little too high, the price point, because they've gotten so used to cheap
fast
goods.
Fashion, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just a relearn. That might happen with a low supply chain now. Right. That might be the lesson that's taught, so that you realize you can't buy all those things. So you have, what your option is one, and then your spending habits sort of change.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because that has been it's just been something where I'm like, yeah, everyone says they want American made, but it's like people, as far as like the customers, aren't really understanding what that means for their pocketbooks.
Exactly.
Because we do have different labor laws.
Exactly.
We do have higher, we have less skilled sewers even.
Oh, yes. That's a conversation I've been having lately too.
There's a lot in our pipeline that has to shift.
Yes.
And we'll never be able to compete with the production that's happening in China.
No.
Their labor laws will never be the same as ours.
Exactly. That's what I always tell our clients too, when they look at the prices of like what the labor is to make their bags, and they seem to be a little astounded. I'm saying, think of it as your next door neighbor.
Right.
That's their job. I mean, look how they live. Look how you live.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on here. There's no machine pumping out clothing.
Yeah.
There's no machine pumping out bags.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, to make a button-up shirt, start to finish, there's no way it can happen in under the 3 hours, maybe?
Exactly.
I'd say 4.
Cut, sew. Yeah, exactly.
And if we're paying a minimum wage, it is what it is.
Yes. Yes.
So people, I think there's this idea that like there's not man-made products. Every single product on the market is made with two hands.
Exactly.
And those people need to be paid a living wage.
Exactly. So that's a lesson learned.
Very interesting conversation. So, in summary, what would you say that when designers say, I need a factory, what are the things? I know we ran through them. But.
So we could just go through the process of the services you need. Where are you in the process? And then, it's really a design consultation. The consultation is always a really good thing to have just so you can get a better idea and perspective of the journey and the path you need to go on so you know what the steps will be before you start spending a lot of money. A tech pack is so important. You need a professional document so everyone's on the same page, the sample maker, the client, our designers, so we can communicate so nothing's lost in the communication path of your design. Sourcing. You need to have your sourcing done. You need to know what's the best material for you. We need to be on the same page with that. That's when the costing really starts too. Where do you want to be when you retail this product? What's it going to cost you? And then making the sample and making the pattern. So that's really the steps that lead up to manufacturing. So if you don't have those ironed out and come to us with like a finished sample, all the materials, your dyes, whatever it takes for you to get started, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So thank you guys for listening. Again, I'm Anna Livermore from V.Mora, and we help launch fashion designers. We do exactly what we were talking about today in regards to getting your styles developed. And if you're interested in reaching out, the website is as in Victor, V.Mora.com, and I do a complimentary 20-minute strategy session. And Laura DiTolo does the same. So again, you want to just sign off?
Yeah, Laura DiTolo, you can reach us at clutchmade.com. And we as well will do a little phone call and give you a 15 minutes of what are you working on, and this is where you need to go.
Perfect. Great. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.